announced by the President. Ms. Duarte, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us. I'd imagine that as the governing party, you deem this as necessary and just the right tone for the situation that we're in.
Thank you very much, Tippy. So good evening.
So yes, I was saying, your reaction to the announcement made by the President, I'd imagine that as a governing party, you believe that it is necessary and the tone is just right for the situation that we're facing.
We believe that it is the best mechanism that we know of in experience of other countries to flatten the curve. We are particularly concerned about the most vulnerable people in our society, particularly people who travel in trains and taxis. And of course, we are very concerned about the welfare of workers and what will happen to them in the next couple of months. So this indeed assists also the health department and our health institutions to cope with the infections that may arise. We also feel that the Solidarity Fund is an extremely important measure to assist SMEs and other businesses. We were happy to hear the President speak about the tourism industry as well as other SMEs. And what we are quite happy about is measures that talk to the informal sector, although there wasn't any specific detail. And we're hoping that tomorrow that will be expressed by the various ministers. What is this safety net for the informal sector, which is quite an important sector in our society? And also taking into account what should happen with workers should they fall ill and the UIF fund. We hope that the ministers will also say something tomorrow about domestic workers. Who play quite a big role in our economy and have been quite vulnerable up to now. So, in a nutshell, we believe this is the right thing to do. It is something we should all work together with, support each other, defend each other, protect ourselves, and understand that the soldiers this time, unlike in the 1980s, are on the streets to help us. And we should see it from that point of view.
Does it make you circumspect as the governing party, just in terms of some of the challenges that the President mentioned, not only the strain to our healthcare system, but especially for those who are disadvantaged, those in the poorer communities who don't have access to shelter, to clean running water, and those whose nutrition has been compromised because of lockdown?
Absolutely, but hopefully nutrition won't be compromised because of lockdown, because the retail stores will remain open and people will do what they normally have done. Of course, one of the areas of concern for us, and we've raised this, has been what happens to, the school feeding schemes. A lot of our children were depending on those meals they were getting at schools, and there is a vulnerability there. So hopefully we'll hear something tomorrow in the detail. And I don't want to speculate. I think it would be wrong to speculate on what the ministers might say. On the water issue, naturally, we all have been very concerned. And after the 15th of March announcement, we saw that water tanks were taken to informal settlements. We hope that that would continue and that there would be more, especially in areas where there's been no water at all, that there would be those water tanks being rolled out. Hopefully, in the not-too-distant future, the problem will be permanently resolved through reticulation and proper damming and so on. But right now, we've got to think about this crisis that we're in.
And speaking about the crisis, the President obviously really emphatic in saying that we've got to do all we can, take dramatic measures, and not only spraying the controlling the spread of the disease. I'm thinking of houses. SABC has been going around the country speaking to many communities, especially in the informal sector, many of them throwing up their hands and saying it's actually quite a ridiculous situation to ask us to socially distance when there are 7 of us in a shack. We actually don't have anywhere to go.
Well, that's the reality that we face with informal settlements. And unfortunately, we can't expect much social distancing in a house of 10 people. But what would help is if people remained located in the place where they are, at least sheltered, so that if there is an infection coming from somewhere else, they might be protected. I know that that's going to be difficult. I know that the informal settlement areas are our most vulnerable areas, and hopefully that's where our focus, of the health authorities will be in the main. And I've just seen that Gauteng is looking for extra nurses, nurses who may not have. I've just seen that as it now, calling for nursing people who may be unemployed and so on. And I think that's a good thing. I think, Tipiso, if I might say, what we need to look forward to is how best we can protect ourselves and defend each other, all of those who live around us. We pray to God that there won't be many more infections, but we also cannot be naive to believe that there won't be. And that's why this measure, even though it is drastic and it's going to be uncomfortable for all of us, is the measure that will assist us to succeed to bring down the rate of infections at a rapid rate.
And this is why I brought up the term being circumspect as a governing party. These are obviously initial stages of ensuring that as a country we don't face greater hardship. But has it made you think even more about the housing crisis in this country? How are we going to resolve that? Those who are vulnerable in the informal sector, who don't have jobs, who are at the risk of malnutrition, etc., etc.
Well, I think that not aware that we have malnutrition, but if that is the case, I certainly would be very interested to find out how we could cope with that. I mean, the child grant and the safety net that we've introduced as the governing party and the government is implementing does assist people to alleviate, not to eradicate at this stage, but to alleviate poverty. It's not enough. It can never be enough. We need to create jobs. For that, we need the country to stabilize economically and so on. So yes, I would imagine that it is an important issue we are thinking about, how to expand the prospects for building more houses, even going into different forms of housing instead of the one way that we've done it up to now. And critically and much more importantly is creating economic development in other areas other than Johannesburg, the city of Cape Town and so on, so people would not have to move into informal settlements to look for work, but would be able to remain in the area where they come from. And I think that is ultimately the way to move, is to create local economies. And through SMMEs, and the development of small to medium enterprises and utilizing the enormous resource of our graduates, we can do this.
And now the president himself actually spoke about dangerously high levels of poverty and malnutrition, and the stunting levels in our country are quite surmountable or insurmountable, just if you look at how many young children actually end up being stunted as a result of malnutrition. But more importantly, I want to look at the ideals that are going to inform the economic package that we're going to roll out as a country. There have been warnings by some economists saying at the end of it, those who are poor should not be left worse off. Looking at what we have put out, first phase, yes, but is it more market friendly? Do you believe that the elite will end up benefiting more?
Again, I'll say I don't want to speculate as to how it will be rolled, who specifically will benefit. But what made me happy was hearing that it was aimed at small to medium business enterprises. That's what I heard. And I thought, well, that's a good thing. At least the sector that suffers the most in a recession usually is your SMME sector. And, you put out the stimulus package to assist that sector to grow during a recession. And what we're dealing with right now is we're dealing with the crisis of the COVID-19 virus, as well as a technical recession at the same time. So the kind of things that were being said there, one would be interested to hear exactly who benefits, how they will benefit, what the mechanisms are for them to access the Solidarity Fund, and so on. And I kept hearing SMMEs, support for SMMEs, safety net for the informal settlement, informal sector. So I think that skepticism, yes, we might be skeptical and say perhaps the bigger companies might benefit. I can't say that. I heard them talk about a tax relief or something. And I think that's precisely where that's going.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking to us. And I do apologize for having to cut you off like that. ANC Deputy Secretary General, Ms. Jessie Duarte. Of course, we are at least canvassing all political parties to get their reaction.